Hello, my name is Emerine. Happy Mermaid! I know it's later in the month, but I wanted to bring this Sandbox challenge with the theme of mermaid and also just like aquatics and magic in general. And so if you haven't seen my last Sandbox video, when I talk about this, it's basically inspired by the Sandbox model in video games where you can do whatever you want within certain guidelines. And so what I did is I scrolled through my Pinterest boards and I randomly selected a base inspiration image, a pose, a color palette, and then if there's anything else that sparked my interest, then I added that as well. And so I chose to add this goldfish artwork because I remembered a doll that I made a while ago that I absolutely love. She's like my own version of a magical girl. And I had this goldfish image in my inspiration board the entire time, but it just ended up going in a different direction, so I didn't end up using it. So I really wanted to not only use the goldfish image, but also I wanted to pay homage to the doll that I made. So I also pulled some star motifs from her, and I made sure to use fish in this new piece. And between the two poses that were in the image, I chose to do the more dynamic one because I knew that I wanted a big skirt, but that was going to get rid of a lot of the movement that would happen with the legs and the feet. And so I wanted the arms to be doing something kind of big and interesting. And from the base inspiration image, I wanted to include those ruffles because, like I've said before, I love shading and drawing ruffles. It's just so easy and so fun. And I also wanted it to include those big 1830s sleeves and also a really densely patterned stomacher. And so I know I'm kind of like history bashing all of these different elements together, but I think it looks really like fantasy, magical, kind of princessy, and I just love how the silhouette turned out. I also really loved the swoopy hairlines from the base inspiration image, and I honestly struggle with hairlines really bad. That's why a lot of my characters have bangs, but I got this down on like the first or second try, and I was so happy with it. I was like, you know what, we're just sticking with it. And then it seemed a little plain up top, just with like her big like poofy hair on top. So I added that crown and I made sure to add like little fish and water drop details into it too. And after I fixed and like worked on the hands, I made the skirt poofier. I also found this beautiful architectural image, and so I used that for a lot of inspiration for these stomacher designs. And so in the stomacher, I was going to originally put like little starfish in there, but I changed it out so that I wasn't using a 5-point star, but just a 4-point star that's a little fancier. And so I end up using that in a lot of different areas, not just on the stomacher, but also on the crown too. And just kind of as a side note, when I was adding this like extra fabric to the bottom part of her sleeves, it kind of reminded me of betta fish, and all of these little like ghosty fish are kind of in between a goldfish and a betta fish. So I thought that was fun. And I learned from my yukata piece from my vlog video that I should use the main color for my underpainting, not just any color. And since the yellow in the color palette was the closest thing to like gold or orange, then I wanted to make that the base color of her dress. And then when I was working on her face, I was inspired by like the 1700s in France, like the Marie Antoinette era, where they had really heavy blush. Their hair was powdered, so it looked almost gray. And also they would put like special beauty marks on their face. And so I made mine white instead of black, but I also made that the little star shape too. And just as another fun like little fish thing, I added the lashes on the ends of her eyes so that they kind of look like gills and fins. So I started going in with shading on her yellow sleeves, blocking in the white like underdress and like ruffle area, and also finishing up her hands and her arms. And then I moved to the stomacher. So the challenge was trying to make it look balanced and colorful and also easy to read with all of the motifs that I was mentioning earlier. And putting it into color was really tricky of trying to figure out how much contrast needed to be there, but I really like how it ended up turning out at the end. And then when I was working on the front ruffles, I thought that I could shade them as I went, but I felt like it was taking way too long. And so I just blocked the shapes out, and then I thought that I could start dark and then add highlights in later, but I realized within like the first 2 or 3 that my brain works better in the opposite way of adding shadows and then, if need be, adding more highlights later. But that was so much easier and it went by so fast. So I wanted to do another big shape with elements poking out, and I had the idea to make her hair look like it was part of the background, almost like she was becoming one with the sea. But honestly, I had no clue how I was going to pull it off. But in the end, I think I got it balanced enough so that the idea comes across. And now working on these little fishies, I had the idea to make them look like glowing spirits or like magical creatures, kind of like the orbs from Brave, or like the little Lumas from Mario Galaxy. And I didn't know how to research this to try to look it up, but I know I've seen things like this before. But I think that they help with the composition a lot and like balancing out some things, and it also kind of gives a little bit more story. But they were really tricky to find out how to make them look like they were glowing from within and also glowing outside, but without like blending in with her dress or different things like that. It was really tricky. And so I ended up making it more subtle than I was planning on, but I think you can still tell that they're like glowing a bit. And I realized that I completely forgot her crown, so I added that real quick. And I also kind of fixed her stomacher a little bit and fixed her hair. And I also added a drop shadow after seeing that you could not see the end of her skirt. And then I went in on refining the background, which was a lot of trial and error. So I guess I'll tell you a little bit about her story. So as I was thinking about it, I thought maybe she could be a princess that was like chosen by the sea, like maybe a mix of the fantasy trope of like the chosen one, but also maybe some like magical girl qualities. And her facial expression seems really calm, so I don't know if maybe like she doesn't want this power, or maybe she's expecting it, or maybe like the stuff in her life is so crazy that she's like bored. I don't know. Or maybe she's just really serene. I have no clue, but what do you guys think? And then at some point, I had my canvas flipped, so my signature looks like it's backwards right now, but I fixed it before I saved everything out. And after a bit more fudging around, this is the final result. This is one of my favorite pieces that I've done in a long time, and I'm really curious to hear about what your theories for her backstory are. And if you want to see a high-res version of this piece, I have it on my website. The link will be down below. And I'd also love to see what you would have come up with if you were given the same 4 images. And if you draw your own version, please tag me so that I can see. And that's all for today. I hope you had an amazing Mermay and that you're getting ready for June. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.